Well,
Kevin Wallen, welcome to the show, Kevin, if it's a Democratic strategist. Kevin, if you look at the big wins of Joe Biden from these big primary states, young people did not really show up for him. How will he close the gap with the younger voters?
Yeah, Armstrong, it's a great question. Obviously, it's a point of concern for the Biden campaign in terms of the energy we saw behind Senator Sanders, both in 2016 and 2020, this most recent election with young voters. I saw just this past week that Jeff Weaver and some of the other close compatriots of Bernie Sanders have actually launched a super PAC to engage young voters, to turn Bernie supporters into Biden supporters come November. But that's certainly going to be a concern for the Biden campaign now that we're just less than 200 days out from the election.
What about the Democratic convention that nobody's talking about? And if you don't have a Democratic convention, how are you going to organize with whatever the replacement is?
Yeah, it's a great question, Armstrong. I mean, I think both the RNC and the DNC are going to struggle with this in terms of how do we engage delegates in some fashion that's safe, whether it be in Charlotte with the RNC, which actually now is happening before the DNC in Milwaukee, since the DNC moved it back 5 weeks. So I know it's top of mind for both the Trump campaign and the Biden campaign in terms of how do we safely go about doing this, both in North Carolina and in Wisconsin.
How do you juxtapose? Yes, Trump has dropped 10 points in the polls, and I think it has much to do with his daily briefings on COVID-19, but yet he's still a juggernaut in fundraising compared to Biden.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and this is what keeps me up at night, is the massive fundraising haul, both from the Trump campaign. The RNC is raising a ton of money. We're going to be outspent, no question, come November, both in terms of the Trump campaign, the RNC, and all of their affiliated super PACs. I'm a little encouraged as a Democrat to see the $46 million that Joe Biden raised in March. I think that's a huge number. It trumps what we saw from both Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama in the 4 and 8 years preceding. So I think you're starting to see that Biden campaign turn on that spigot. You saw a lot of fundraising efforts by Hillary Clinton just this past week, who endorsed Joe Biden. She sent numerous emails to her list. So I think as we pivot towards a general election, you're going to start to see, hopefully, the Biden campaign close that gap with fundraising. But it's certainly a concern for me.
You know, this is just an observation because I really appreciate having you on our platform. We saw this standard with Brett Kavanaugh and others when it comes to the issue of sexual harassment. And Vice President Biden has said in the past that women should always be believed. And he certainly has been an advocate of the Me Too movement. We have these allegations that are coming out about his own sexual harassment. Do you think the campaign can handle it better? Do you think there's a better way of getting out front on it? How serious do you think these allegations are?
Yeah, it's a difficult question, Armstrong. And I can't speak for the Biden campaign or Joe Biden personally. I do think that you've seen declarations from the campaign saying 100% deny these allegations that Tara Reid, who was a staffer in the U.S. Senate for Joe Biden in the early 90s, has leveled against this senator. And I do worry that any kind of dismissal that she should not be heard is problematic for our side. These allegations should be investigated. They doesn't seem to be that they were investigated in the 1990s if any allegations were leveled. I saw most recently in the past month that Tara Reid filed a police complaint but did not list Joe Biden as the perpetrator. So there's some inconsistencies with Tara Reid's account. But again, everything should be investigated. You've seen very forceful denials from the Biden campaign. I think we need to hear from the vice president directly on this, obviously, as this story is gaining steam. But again, Armstrong, as you rightly point out, Joe Biden's been a champion for women, passing the Violence Against Women Act in the 1990s when these allegations supposedly took place, and has been a champion for women as a vice president, working to end sexual assault on college campuses. So he has a strong record of supporting women. But again, every woman should be heard, but not every woman should be believed in this case.
Listen, I want to thank you so much for joining us, Kevin Walling. What do you think the best path is for Biden to capture the White House?
Yeah, it's 3 straight states, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. That's the whole ball game. everything else is gravy. If we focus our efforts in those 3 states, Michigan was as close as 0.2%. Of course, it's interesting now with the news that Justin Amash, member of Congress, might be considering a third-party bid. But it's those 3 states. We got to organize in those 3 states. And again, that's the whole ballgame.
Well, listen, Kevin Walling, Democratic strategist, thank you so much for joining us. And when